Hey guys, welcome to Electronic Dance Money, your number one business resource for making money as electronic musicians and producers. All right, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Electronic Dance Money. This is gonna be a fucking great one. Whenever I have guests on, it's always so much better, and I'm always looking for new guests. And these guys are like the exact kind of guests that I want to have on the show. These guys are super knowledgeable. We're gonna be getting out tons of information for all of you listeners. Today I've got Los Padres. In the episode, we've got Gino and Carlos.
What's up,
we're gonna be talking about some branding stuff. Which, actually, funny enough, this episode is gonna be the 1 year anniversary from when the show started.
Hey,
I just realized that a year ago.
Happy 1 year, man. That's awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All the thanks has to go to the listeners though, because I mean, the show has just dude. When I first launched the podcast a year ago, I think it was within the first month, I had something like 10 to 20 downloads, I think it was.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, just around probably 4 or 5 months in, it just started growing. By the time this episode hits, I think we're going to be at 3,000 downloads within the first year.
Yes, dude. Awesome. Congratulations, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Again, it goes out to all the listeners and supporters of the show. It's fucking incredible how dedicated people are to actually checking out the show and how many times people are actually re-listening to episodes and stuff. So I know these podcasts are doing something for someone.
Yeah.
But anyways, ironically, the third episode I did was about branding, where I had my buddy Alberto on, who runs a mixing and mastering studio for a lot of more bands, more rock stuff. But we talked about Instagram branding and how that looks and how to figure out your brand. And I do think that episode's definitely dated by now, just because a lot of the things we were talking about were Instagram algorithms, and I mean, they change their damn every social media site changes their algorithm every 2 weeks.
Gino is so experienced with that.
It's
true story, sir.
It's ridiculous. It's so hard to keep up with it. Do you guys follow Gary Vaynerchuk at all?
No.
Yeah, Gary V. You mean Gary V?
Oh yeah. Gary v. Yeah, for sure.
So
yep.
Go on, Gino.
No, I was gonna say I'm pretty familiar with him. I don't know, not wildly familiar, but he's pretty looked up like he's like a god when it comes to the Instagram algorithms and stuff.
Just social media in general. I mean, content creation straight across the board. He's just, I mean, he records himself like 8 hours a day. Just has a videographer following him, and they chop everything up into content. He's a content machine. It's insane. But I saw a post by him that said, because there's an algorithm, treat it as there being no algorithm. Because since which basically means they changed the algorithm so much that means there is no algorithm. So fuck the system. Just fucking post.
Right.
Post whatever hashtags you want and just run with that. And if it's relative content to people, they'll like it and people will follow you. But anyways, yeah, so we're going to be talking a little bit more into the branding aspect, not just with social media, but branding in general, as well as supplemental income stuff. Because you hear me talk about on the show consistently about how you need to diversify your work within the music industry. But I haven't gone thoroughly into topic about what supplemental income means and what potentially that could look like even outside of the music industry. And we were briefly talking about this on Saturday morning before the kind of pre-show setup, and the things we wanted to talk about. So let's get into it. First, Carlos, if you want to introduce yourself and get a little bit into your background in the music industry and how you kind of got to where you are, and then Gino, you can jump in right after him.
Awesome. Well, congratulations again on the 1 year, man. That's like so big. It's such a great accomplishment, and it's shout out to all your listeners, and thank you again for having us. Absolutely a pleasure to be here. We've been looking for an opportunity to kind of speak with someone on these things, because I feel like once you start to learn about Gino and myself, you'll see how widespread we literally are within our individual campaigns and our duo, and then some of the stuff we have on the side. So my name's Carlos. I go by Cameo with a K, Perez. I come from music. I've been fortunate to have a parent who has grown up from the streets to the Grammy Award winning stage as a percussionist. So I've been around that kind of influence from studio sessions to production from a very young age. I started to pursue it heavy about senior year in high school. And then shortly after that, I decided to join the military because, and we'll dive into that, but supplemental income. What was I going to do if I wanted to chase this goal? How was I going to make a steady paycheck? Did I want to compete early, or did I want to, maybe pursue the opportunity of getting my music education paid for by the military and then flip that into money? So that was one thing about me that happened early on. And then the other thing is, after I got out of the military, I had an opportunity to do some remixes for official labels, Atlantic, Big Beat, Def Jams. And remixes not only teach you how to work with somebody else's product, but it teaches you how to identify yourself as a producer, because you have to take something that's already pressed on wax and create it again to help it gain momentum, keep momentum, or to bring that record back up in the charts. So I went from remixes to ghost production, and then I was fortunate enough to connect with Gino, and we have very similar things when it comes to that. And that's pretty much the quick lowdown of it without getting too deep into it. But had the opportunity to work with some pretty amazing people along the way. So, your floor.
So first and foremost, congrats on the 1 year that you got. I know how big of a deal that is for you guys, and hats off to you. But my name is Gino Soto. I'm come from more of a Latino background like Carlos, and I'm Cuban. Both of my parents come from a Cuban background as well. But the difference, I guess, between Carlos and me is that I come from a much more classical background since I about 9 years old when my sister picked up the violin, and she's about 3 years older than me in middle school, and as a kid, and I saw that as a big inspiration to me. But within 3 months after picking up the violin, I switched to cello in the middle of the summer, and pretty much learned how to read music just playing Disney songs, man. And that's and I really grasped the concept of music through that, I guess as like a child, to putting all my movies that I liked together all through that, and it really, I had a connection through that, and I carried that all the way through almost high school, all participating in different orchestras outside of school and conservatories, and I got an opportunity to play in Carnegie Hall when I was 16 years old, and I really did some amazing things as a kid. So I never thought about doing anything else other than music as a kid, and that's one of the things that I think made it so passionate about, is I never thought about being a teacher or nothing like that. I just wanted to be a musician first and foremost. So I carried that all the way through college, and I remember I had to make a big decision that my parents, sort of asked me to do around 17. You got to make that decision. And like I said, I went all hands into being a cello musician. And with that being said, did it all the way through college at Valencia College and moved here to Orlando. But along the ways, I picked up DJing. I started working for just, like Carlos did, supplemental income through college. I wanted to put some money into my music as well. And I started working with Blue Man Group in the audio engineering, kind of in the backgrounds. And I started learning, the ins and outs of audio engineering, quick and ins. And then I picked up DJing through that. And to kind of, long story short, if not too late, that gave me an opportunity I started doing quinceañeras and weddings, and I met a lot of people through networking that I eventually landed a really good opportunity working with Nappy Boys with T-Pain over here in Tallahassee. And that sort of changed the gear for me from classical to DJing to now hip hop. And I was just kind of all over the spectrum, but I had really enjoyed the process of it. And then that lasted a little bit, and then I jumped into electronic music, and then I jumped into trance, and had a project with that, and that picked up with supports of Above and Beyond and Armin van Buuren, and that really solidified the fact that I wanted to stick with electronic music, and there was a passion with that. And then with that being said, that carried on to meeting Carlos at a couple years ago at EDC, And from then in, it was just kind of the yin to my yang, if you will, when it comes to music production, because we speak so much of the same language when it comes to music that, it's come to this, and we're real happy where it's come. So, but yeah.
Damn, I mean, both of you, I love it. I love hearing your guys' stories, because it's you both come from like two worlds that are different but kind of set in the same space.
Right.
And you both have,
yeah.
I mean, both of you guys have worked on major productions, which is those opportunities you get are they're some of the craziest ones, because when you get those chances to work with like these serious people and serious musicians, it's so exciting, it's so nerve-wracking. A lot of the times people get caught up in the moment and they forget to really take in everything that they're learning and the opportunity that they have.
We learn from each other on a daily basis, man. I mean, one thing that we are really, really good with is staying in communication with each other. It's not like we live in the same house, right? So we have our individuality, but when it comes to the duo, in my opinion, there's no better way to pick a partner than somebody who's better than you at a completely different thing. Right? So like Gino understands theory and classical, literally composition. So I don't greenlight anything unless he puts ears on it, because in all reality, we still want to make music, right? Sometimes production can get redundant. You're using the same kind of techniques. But when you have somebody who has a classically trained ear, you can get a little bit creative and step out of the box. And I think on Saturday we touched base with that. We want to make sure that we're still making music, right? Whether it's bass house or pop or Moomba or at something for a festival set. But I can guarantee you, when you hear us play, you're going to listen to compositions and productions that make sense, that a musician could appreciate, and that 10 years from now, the process of getting to that product is still going to be relevant. I mean, we still use music theory that was created hundreds of years ago. And we use that as one of the cores of our production. So when it comes to the duo, I think we're a great match. I mean, analog, digital, right? So I write stuff digitally, he plays it analog, and then we put that in. So it's been a fantastic run, man.
I think you hit on something that's a key component in this topic that we're kind of just going off of right now, and it's the fact that you understand, and this is something I've talked about in the past, you both understand that you guys have specific strengths and specific weaknesses,
right?
And instead of trying to double down on your weaknesses to build those up and make those stronger, you guys realize that you're more efficient doubling down on your strengths and finding someone who has who's strong in your weaknesses, and that complements each other perfectly. That is how you create some sort of successful group or duo like that, is finding someone that has your weaknesses that are their strengths. That is the core component to it all. If anyone's out there looking for a duo, do not just go whimsically posting in Facebook groups or on Reddits looking for someone to be a duo partner with, because 9 times out of 10, that's not going to work. One, you might not have the chemistry with that person, which is another very significant component of that. But the other thing is you don't know their strengths or their weaknesses. And if you don't even know what your own strengths or weaknesses are, you're more than likely not going to work. It's not going to work out, because if for a duo to work out, regardless if one person does all of the production and mixing and then the other person just does the marketing, the person that does the production more than likely is not good at marketing, because they're in the studio 24/7, whereas the person who's great at marketing might be super into the music, wants to be a musician, it might be good at DJing, and they can focus. Both of you guys can focus on your strengths, and you will get so much further that way. Rather than two really good producers coming together can make a great track and make maybe a good collaboration, but that does not mean that they're going to make a good duo, because a lot of the times you get these alpha mentalities that fight with each other, where they both want to be right about their own productions, and it just causes a lot of major issues.
Absolutely. Dude, you said it perfect. That's the golden nugget right there, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I think something really if sorry if
no,
I
go
think
go
something
on.
something really important that you said that I really want to drive home is that everybody has their weaknesses and fortes, and I say this to all producers and musicians. Nobody's perfect by any means. Nobody's perfect, and the things that you have your weaknesses on, like, it's okay to admit those weaknesses and not cover up or sugarcoat that you may know these things, and learn those things, and take pride in learning those things. I know with Carlos and I, like, there's never, first of all, having a DJ duo is something, it's a work. Like, it's not something that, it's not always bright colors. Like, there's just times it absolutely is a relationship, and sometimes, like, there's conversations that you don't want to have with that person, but you have to have it because that means so much to you, whether it be the brand or the music that you guys are making, that if you both have an understanding of that, there should be no hiccups and bumps. And Carlos and I have established something like that, and so he knows what his weaknesses may be, and I know what my weaknesses may be, and so we have these role managements where we know our roles in this brand or this this duo, right. And we take pride in that, and right. Then we drive that home, and that's something that so
we've literally looked at each other square in the face and say, I'm not good at this, and I'm not good at that, and people feel so vulnerable with that, man. They feel vulnerable with their shortcomings or their finances, mm-hmm. or whether or not they're good at marketing, or whether or not they need to promo. But we've looked at each other and said, listen, bro, I'm not good at this, or I don't have the attention span to maybe focus on getting better at this. Could you handle this? Yes. And then vice versa. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's become such a healthy relationship. I mean, we've done white label remixes for Alicia Keys, 21 Pilots, Brockhampton. And those remixes, we have a client, and then we have our own individual tastes. And then how do we get to a kosher point where we're like, okay, this is ready to send up and provide our client with a product? Sometimes there's hard conversations like, no, I don't like that route, or no, I don't like this drop. If you can't take that kind of criticism from your own partner, or be able to see eye to eye on certain things and compromise, it's going to be a rough time finding a good duo partner. You've got to be vulnerable. You've got to be available to be broken. It's a relationship.
Definitely.
For sure.
Definitely 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, this is something that I always talk about. Is I thought I wanted to be a producer and a touring artist and DJ, and though that still sounds like wonderful and fantastical to me, and who wouldn't want that if you're a producer, I realized fairly early on that, like, I'm not the best producer. Like, I can write a good track, and especially now that I've been at it for going on 8 years now. Like, I can write a solid track. I can write it in enough time, and I can get a good idea out there, but that's not my strong suit. My strong suit is the business side of this stuff. It's the marketing. That's what I'm good at. And so what's on the table with that is exactly what we're talking about here. Is if I were to come across another producer who's fucking great at production, who I mesh well with, who needs a marketer, I could easily run into a duo situation with that. And what we're talking about here is a business. I mean, that's what you guys are running. And so you have a business partner, and this is going to go into the entire topic of today, but I just read a book that is unfucking real called The E-Myth Revisited, Why Most Small Businesses Don't Work Out and How to Fix It. And
nice.
It cuts deep to the core for anyone who runs a small business. I'm going to do a full episode breaking down this book and how producers can utilize it, but you guys are already nailing one of the points of the book that it very vividly emphasizes, and it's structuring your business or your production duo in such a way that you have roles. So, like, you've got someone that is doing the finances, so they're handling the accounts receivable, accounts payable. You've got someone who's like, which you both could be the facilities manager. And for me, the facilities manager is like literally cleaning up my workspace, making sure the facility is clean and I'm able to work in it. And then you've got like advertising and research. So someone's focusing on that stuff. And all these different topics are, if you do not structure out some sort of your business this way, I mean, this is how you fail, because you start, there's so much to do, you don't know what to do at what given time, and you don't have a system created for that specific thing, and it turns into just complete fucking chaos. Things are confusing, you don't know where things are, you don't know what you should be doing in the moment, and it can cause so much stressful complications that you just implode over time. You can't handle it anymore, and that's when you get to the point where you're like, I'm done with this, I'm over it. You burn out, and it's just you think it's not for you, but what really happens, you just didn't structure it in a healthy way that would actually make you successful.
You didn't set up to succeed.
Exactly. You have to have a business. You have to have
Right.
a fucking plan, and that's not just goals. That's like structuring the entire system to be successful. Otherwise, it's just gonna fail. But anyone who wants to check out that book, it'll be in the show notes.
I once heard, if I may, before we close out on that subject, I once heard a quote that my dad gave to me as a kid, and I always carry with me. And you guys kind of said it's if you plan to fail, you fail to plan. And so, it works in itself. So, and that's kind of a mentality that I carry with this. And I think Carlos understands that as well. So, I think that's something that everybody should hear out.
Yeah. Having a plan is the very basics of setting anything up. Now, how loose you want to be with that plan is totally up to you, because I think having too tight of a plan where everything is literally like to the T, like in a year, in 2 months, this is where I'm going to be. I think that's a little too structured, because then you're also still setting yourself up for failure, because if you don't meet those, you're going to feel like a failure. You're going to be disappointed, and you're not going to be motivated. So setting up realistic goals time-wise and what the actual end goal is important, on top of still being okay with, like, it may not get there, and that's okay. So we can adjust some things to accommodate. You never know what comes up, whether that's personally or professionally. But anyways, let's dive into the first topic we're going to be discussing, which is, ultimately branding. Now, branding is this very vague thing that seems to be tossed around in music business, in business in general. It's just, you hear branding, and a lot of the times people hear logo or name. That's all they hear. But it's a little bit more than that. For me personally, when I think of branding, it is the face. It's you're looking at what the logo is. You're looking at who is as producers, who the musician is. And then you're also, I think the biggest thing that people fail to represent in branding is consistency. And this is something that is, just riddled with abuse as producers. If you look at their social media feeds, specifically Instagram, and this is something that I was actually looking at on your guys' Instagram, that I thought was so, you guys hit perfectly, and that is the consistency. So when I go up and when I open up your guys' Instagram here, what I see is an artist. I see musicians. I don't see these personal food photos. I don't see personal pictures of you guys. I see photos of both of you guys through like photo shoots. I see show photos. I see a handful of different things, but the main point that you guys are throwing, and also music related stuff for your guys' personal music. But what I mean by consistency here is that there is a consistent message. We are DJs. We are producers. This is Los Padres. This is what we look like. This is what we do. This is what we sound like. So many times I go on producers' pages, and it's just, there's absolutely no consistency.
Right.
So
this
you
is
look
what I
at
had
it,
for lunch. Does it look like I'm a race car driver?
I'm at the gym. This is, it's like, okay, those are all cool for stories because your fans are following you throughout your day. But when you look at someone's feed like that, if you have a potential fan, first of all, let's just talk about like a personal photo or a traveling photo. When you put hashtags on that and someone comes and looks at it and goes, oh, I'm going to follow this person because they're traveling, you're already targeting the wrong market. This could be someone who hates electronic music, but is in love with country music, but likes your travel photo. They follow you. You're posting your music on there, trying to get people to save your pre-release on Spotify, but no one is. And you go, well, I have 1,000 followers. And it's like, yeah, but who's following you? What target market is following you, because if they don't like electronic, you're wasting your time here.
Yeah, your Instagram feed is definitely a resume to the open market. I mean,
Yes.
it is your, hey, this is who I am. Would you be so inclined to follow somebody like me and support a product that I make? Right? So it's like whether or not, you want to be an influencer or you're a chef, a chef is not going to post himself, anti-food, anything like that. You know what I mean? Whether it's something deeper in his category. But yeah, I totally agree with that. And believe it or not, it actually took us, since we're on the topic of branding, it took us a little bit to really find our look or our vision. Um,
It took me a while.
Yeah, branding's the backbone of any any product, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? And it represents your energy, and it represents what kind of client you want to commit to your product, whether it's a stream or a purchase or a ticket sale, or you know what I mean? And I think it's important to make sure that you're not overzealous with your Instagram stuff, but at the same time, you are honest. I mean, we're honest about what we do. I think branding is for sure the most important thing, but it's okay if it takes a little bit or a season or two to figure it out. Times are, moving so fast that your brand may not fit with the momentum of music or your category of music or your genre specific, and you might have to reconsider your options.
100%. I mean, if you, a good case to look at this, like taking a while to figure out your brand, simply go to my Instagram page. Go to instagram.com/enviousaudio. Look at my studio's Instagram and start from the very bottom, the very beginning, which starts in like July of 2018. And I only post once a week-ish, sometimes a couple times a week. So there's not a ton of posts on there. But if you look, I have the most inconsistent message possible. It's a bunch of different memes and posting people's tracks. And it doesn't, when you look at it originally, you're like, none of this makes any fucking sense at all. And then you start scrolling up, and then I get to a point where you're like, okay, now I see a consistent message. And I started doing a bunch of tips and tricks on Instagram for different producer tips, marketing tips, whatever it was. There's a consistent brand message. And then you see where the brand changed even more, where I doubled down on something and I went more into the content creation space of like articles, this podcast, offering different free products for getting on my mailing list, all these different sections that really more drove people to my website, because that's where I want people to go rather than on my Instagram page. And then right now I just had another like very brief brand change where I'm changing the way I'm posting, or I'm creating the covers for the podcast episodes, which is a little bit more, which I actually learned this from Chris, who introduced us. Chris runs the No Face PR team, and after he posted the episode I did with Dennis, I liked the way they did the cover art for it, so I was like, I'm gonna just take that, and I'm gonna start using that for my episodes, because I really like that layout.
Absolutely.
So, and you'll see that, I mean, this brand just, it takes time. I mean, it's taken me 2 years now.
You could say you've matured. Your brand has matured. Your product has matured, and you know what? It will reap what it sowed. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people shy away from that. Like, I think it's great. We started with this whole black and white idea because the sound we were making was pretty aggressive, and then I don't want to jump ahead too far.
No, you're
too
good.
far in the podcast, but quarantine happened, COVID happened, right? And we got on the horn and we're just like, yo, should we use this opportunity to really consider what we could evolve into post pandemic? Or do we want to come out of here exactly how we went in? Right? So we started producing records, we started using vocalists who actually gave us songs, meaningful messages, or songs that people could relate to instead of just a sample that was chopped in a build and then you hear it throughout the drop. We wanted to go a different route. So that whole black and white concept, although it was good at the beginning, it might not be that relevant now. So we want to come out with a more colorful package. The other thing that people don't talk about a lot is rebranding, right? And I look up to these two. I use them a lot in comparison to what we do. When you go to the Chainsmokers page, it's completely paused out. They have one post when they had thousands for the last 5 years. And it said, you know what? We're taking a pause. We're focusing on a rebrand. When we come back at you, it's going to be a new sound, a new look, a new environment. And you know what? Kudos to them for having the balls to completely archive their social media, maybe take a mental break, but who's to say they don't come back with another top 10, every quarter for the next 2 years again? They went from getting a vocal on Hype Beast and having a number one record to selling out arenas worldwide. So it's okay to say, let's pump the brake, reevaluate. As long as the next step is forward, it's all good. And that's what you're touching on with yourself, and that's what we're doing.
Exactly.
So
COVID was a blessing in disguise for producers. As long as your family, you weren't seriously affected by it. But if you're in the space of wanting to be a serious producer, COVID was a blessing in disguise because it gave you the opportunity to sit the fuck down, think about what you're doing, how you're going to take this time to improve yourself and grow on something bigger than yourself and move yourself forward. I went through, like, as we're talking about with my Instagram, I've gone through many phases of quote unquote rebranding or just evolving my brand. And my website was just one of them that I did about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. I was looking at my website as I was posting stuff, and I was like, it looks dated, it looks cheesy. With my brand, especially for my website, it was this really dark brand. So everything was black with this cyan blue color and then some white. And that was like my color branding for Envious Audio. So when people went to my website, I wanted them to get this as producers, because I offer mixing and mastering services. I wanted them to come to my website and get the feeling of like deep energy, like club level type stuff. Like, you're going to get a product that is going to compete with people in clubs. Your tracks are going to be played in clubs. You're going to be amped because you're on and I wasn't getting any quote requests or anything. So I was like, okay, something's wrong with this. So I started to do some research into what it means to color brand and what colors do for people. And I realized that darkness, that really dark color, is a bit off-putting. It brings this somewhat depressive feel. So I was like, okay. Yeah. So I was like, well, and it looks shady almost a little.
Yeah.
Like dark web type stuff. So I was okay, let me completely flip this then and go all white. And so I completely rebranded. I made it a much more clean look. Everything's bright and more calming, and it's done fucking wonders for me over the past couple of months.
There you go.
Branding is psychology, man.
Yes, it is.
Branding is psychology. Are you going to be able to attract somebody to support your product? It really is. If anybody wants to kind of dig deep into that, music psychology is a big thing. You have music minor, you have music in major for a reason. You know what I mean? And Gino, I'm sure you're familiar with that. As your classical traits go, you understand how minor music will move somebody, and then you understand how major music can move somebody, chromatic scales and stuff like that, what scale of music you're going to use. So we need to know that if we receive a vocal from a vocalist and it's written in a certain way, we need to follow suit, because psychology says that it will maybe yield us a better return on that product. You know what I mean? We're not going to just go completely opposite end of the scale. There's a reason why those things are there.
Right. Which one of you guys runs like most of the marketing and social media stuff?
That's Gino.
So
yeah, I guess that'd be me.
Yeah, what to you, for you, I'm sure you guys both sit down and really have discussed like, how are we going to move forward with branding? But for you, what does that entail? What does that look like? And what does that really mean to you when you're sitting down and kind of looking at how you want to brand yourself and you guys individually? Well, I guess as a duo.
It's been sort of a journey. I remember when we first started the brand, we wanted to be, first of all, Carlos and I, we're 90s boys, so we come from a very nostalgic, background. So we wanted to carry that into the brand. So we were like, hey, maybe we use a certain type of filter, a certain type of, color to keep the profile kind of in unison with one. But as you've seen and as we've kind of hit on, like, we just want to make sure that we keep the consistency and lifestyle that, hey, we're producers. This is what we offer. We can do live shows. We're in the studio. We can teach you how to make sounds. Musicians in the background with the pianos and the cellos. There's just so much to hit on when it comes to what Los Padres really is as a brand. So detail and there's so much to offer. So every week or every bi-weekly, you want to post something different and keep your crowd and audience in tune with something and keep them on their toes. So for me, that's something very, very important that Carlos and I always talk on. You see a lot of these DJs that post some of these like cliche pictures of them like looking down at a sidewalk with some cliche Hallmark quote, and it's just like, that to me that's cool and it's nice, but Carlos and I, like, we're not about that, and that's not what we want to stand for Los Padres. Like, we want, we're about the music. We want to tell people in the studio what we're doing, the lyrics that we're writing. We're not hiding anything. We don't want to we're vulnerable just like everybody else in the studio. You can take our sounds and go ahead and do what you want with them. Will you make the same track as ours? I don't know, but we are in their social medias just showing you what we're going to do behind the scenes, and that's something that I want to always carry with Los Padres. And I think of what we've done even throughout COVID-19, like we've carried now, with videos of us in the studio writing songs for the new quarter that we have upcoming. We've taken advantage of this COVID-19 in a really, really cool, unique way in that aspect with the unorthodox posts of in the studio and stuff like that. So that's something we like to keep on with the socials.
And also, like, your audience might initially think or come to find, like, on our social media, man, it feels a little inconsistent. It's because we are in that transitional phase, right?
Yeah.
And
You're testing things. You're seeing what
Right.
works and
Yeah.
what doesn't. Yeah.
Right. But come next quarter, we're launching a distribution deal that we have. We're launching a label. We're launching products. We're launching. So, we have to make sure that we are doing these things and throwing these cards out consistently, yes, but we need to see what sticks. You know what I
Yes.
mean? What do our people want? You know what I mean?
There's a fine line you have to work between the consistency and the doing what is actually going to work, testing, because there's
Right.
always going to be testing
Right.
regardless of what you do, whether that's with advertisement or that's rebranding or evolving your brand. There has to be some level of testing to make sure that you're not leaving any money out on the table, because you never know if something's going to work unless you test it. And if you just dedicate to one thing and you just come up with, let's say you come up with one idea, you dedicate to that one idea and you work on that one idea for 6 months and nothing happens. Well, if you would have gone with a handful of things, maybe 3 to 4 things, and played those out over a 6-month period, you'd have a good amount of test subjects to look at analytics, look what drove actual conversions and consistent amount of traffic to whatever it is, whatever your call to action is. Then you can look at those conversions and go, okay, this is actually what's working. This kind of works, and we can play on this and test that a little bit more. But let's drop these other things because these just aren't doing anything at all.
And the other thing is, during this time, we've built our team times 5, right? So it initially started just Gino and I. During this time, we've built up a team, someone to review the analytics, someone to help us with the PR, someone to help us with the branding, essentially, someone to make sure that our music sounds consistent when it is out there. So, you can't do this on your own either. I mean, there are products out there to help, but dude, you can't do this by yourself. And I literally wrote this down. I was like, to be consistent with your content, you have a team, or you should look into trying to create a team for yourself. And then you have social media content calendars. You have automation of posts. You have scheduling tools for promotion. And we have not nailed any of that down, and that's okay. But you know what? Everything is moving forward for us and progressively getting better and better and better. And when that one thing sticks, you better believe we're going to have that thing on fucking autopilot.
Yeah, that also just comes down to the systems you have in place. You need to have good systems that you're doing the same thing. And this goes into the E-Myth Revisited book that I was reading, is creating a franchise prototype. And what that means is you have a system for every single thing you do. You do the exact same thing every single time, so it's ingrained in your brain, so no mistakes are made. But on top of that, you can look at that system that's put in place properly, and you can figure out how you can automate it, how you can change it, make it faster, better, so you're spending less time doing that. Therefore, your dollar per hour goes up.
Exactly.
And regardless of what that dollar per
so big with
that dollar per hour you can put a dollar on it. You could say, how much does it cost you, or what does it cost to create a Facebook post? How much time does it take you to do that? What's the dollar amount on that? And you could say it takes me 30 minutes to do that, and that costs me $5. Well, then that right there is $5 to do. Now, if you come up with a handful of different things that takes you 3 hours to do, and it costs you a total of $15, you can hire someone, a virtual assistant or someone, who could do that for you, who you can charge $8 an hour. You're now saving $7 an hour doing that thing.
Exactly.
On top of your time being saved, you can focus on bigger and better things. And you could do the same thing with automating systems that way. So I might need to bring you guys on for a systems episode where we go even deeper into this subject.
Absolutely.
Systems are like the number one thing everyone should be paying attention to, because it's how you can do things faster, make more money doing what you love, and you don't have to stress out about stuff. Real quick, because we're starting to transition into the other topic of supplemental income, which I want to talk about, especially with building a team. But the first thing I want to talk about before that is really this branding subject, because I know we're being very vague with the testing this thing out. Like, I say this thing, and I'm sure a lot of people are saying, well, what is that thing? And honestly, what it is it's different from everyone. Everyone's brand is different. Every producer is different. And you can't compare one person to the next, because it's always going to be done differently. So what would you guys say to other producers who are trying to figure out what their brand is? And I know we already touched on, take time with it. Don't rush into this thing. It's going to evolve over time. But what would you say are the stepping stones to getting to that place where you're finally like figuring it out? I know for me, it took someone to tell me what the issue was. And that was my buddy Alberto, when we did the whole Instagram
I love that
episode. He sat down with me and he's like, okay, your brand's very inconsistent. Nothing makes any sense. He's like, I think you should focus on like tips and tricks. And so that's what I doubled down on, and it worked. It's actually it tripled my following in 4 months, 5 months. And then I stopped doing it and my following stopped increasing, but that's because I wanted to go a different direction. And I'm okay with that. I'm not in it for the followers. I don't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
Because honestly, my Instagram followers I've converted 0 Instagram followers since I started it in 2 years. I just have that as a promotional machine for my other things, for my articles and my podcast. And actually, I shouldn't say I've converted 0 of my Instagram followers to leads and actual paid projects for my studio, where I'm getting mixing and mastering projects. I haven't converted anyone there, but what I have done is I have successfully converted probably hundreds of people, if they're my followers or not, hundreds of people on Instagram to come listen to this podcast. I guarantee there's people listening to this podcast who found me on Instagram, posting about this podcast, who are listening now. I've converted those people to listen to my podcast. I've also converted those people to my mailing list, and I've also converted those people to read my articles. And then I have, with my website, I have like advertising retargeting set up. So anyone who visits my website, if you've visited my website, you're going to get Facebook ads and Instagram ads. You're going to all of a sudden see my studio pop up as a sponsored ad, and that's through retargeting. But the point is I've converted people into a sales funnel. They're top of funnel people. They're interested. They've realized that there is some sort of product here that is going to offer them something positive and useful. and that puts them at the top of the funnel, there's no one knows, but more than likely those people will slowly move down to the funnel to eventually turn into a converted paid project. And that's simply through an Instagram post. But what would you say to get people to that point? Because I think all of us here, we've followed this journey where it was probably someone who told us what to look for and what to maybe start doing. And eventually over time, we figured it out on our own when we focused on one specific branding topic for, let's say social media, because we're kind of focusing on that right now. And then eventually it moving down, it just evolves into this thing where eventually it just starts clicking where you're like, oh, okay, I know where this is going now. I can see the path out in front of me. So how do you get there? What steps do you take to get to that point? I would
say like one thing is you got to be fucking humble, right? You got to be willing to let somebody come through your threshold and be like, yo, you guys are monsters when it comes to this production, but your fucking brand sucks, man. And like you, it happened to us. We got one of my really good friend took a management role with us, and he has an amazing brand. He's got sponsorships. He's resident DJs at some of the biggest clubs in the Southeast, to include 11, Live, Vegas Residences, New York, Boston. And he is so consistent that when he came to us, he said, this is going to take some time. You guys need to re-educate yourself on what you're actually doing with your product. And you kind of get stepped back because you're like, dang, I wish I would have known this a year or two ago.
Fucking hurts.
It hurts. Bro, you've got to be fucking humble. And then you've got to have the humility to go, you know what, Gino? Even though you and I like the color red and they love the color blue, it's time to let go of red, man. You know what I'm saying? And that's just an example. But it takes somebody on the outside. So I would say be humble, have the humility to hear it. And that might actually be the core of figuring out your own brand, is see how other people perceive you, right?
Ask people what your brand is. You can literally go to find someone who doesn't know who you are. Now, this doesn't need to be a random fucking person on the internet, but someone you know but doesn't necessarily know your production Instagram page. Have them go on there and be like, what's the consistent message you're getting here?
Or use 3 words and describe my Instagram page.
Exactly.
And if they don't hit DJ, producer, or musician, and they say partier, drinker, and VIP, well,
you need to change
you're fucking wrong.
Something has to change. Gino, you were going to mention something?
No, I think Carlos hit everything. Carlos said it for me, pretty much. You have to just be okay with humbling yourself in some of these things. And I think with Carlos and I, that's sort of a training and process we had from the get-go. And like I said, Carlos and I, when we're in the studio, it's not always butterflies and flowers. Like, there's some things we have to dispute and debate whether we want that or not, because of things we're being told or the demands that are being in this, with the music and so that's okay to take a step back and be like, you know what? He's right. Let's take left instead of going right. And so when you have that, kind of mentality, when you have someone else telling you, hey, you might want to work on your socials because you're lacking in this, it's okay to take that and to learn from that and get better at it. And that kind of says what I went back is like your fortes and weaknesses, take pride in that, and it's be okay and work in that. Because I've had to do things with Los Padres that I haven't had to do ever in my music production career, because like the demand is so different in 2020 now that a producer isn't just a producer anymore. Like, a producer is an entrepreneur in a way. A producer can be a marketer. A producer can be this. So thank God for the YouTubes of the world to take initiative and to learn these things, because like, instead of staying at home and twiddling your thumbs and buying books and stuff like that, go on YouTube. Go while you're doing cooking or something like that, learn something in those 3 minutes that you're trying to write that down and take initiative, like I said. And that goes such a long way. So
yeah, I agree 100%. There's this, it's important to do your own fucking research, and not this going to learn how to design a specific sound or how someone like that has its time and place for when you're in the studio. But when we're talking about branding and marketing here, don't look for Don't Google how to create a music brand. That's not branding in and of itself is very universal, regardless of what industry you're in. You're going to fall because there's already been a specific system and path in place for branding that is tried and true. It works day in and day out, regardless of what industry you're in. So go do just general branding and marketing research, because you can translate that over to music. It's just how are you going to consume it, and how are you going to apply it? And a lot of the stuff we're talking about here too is ego and pride, which is the biggest issue with musicians in general. Is their egos are too inflated and they're too soft, and they have too much pride for themselves, and they're afraid to producers have been told time and time again to let their shell down when you're getting feedback for a track. And that is important to have, and I think a lot of producers have adapted and taken on that thought process, but I don't think enough producers have been told to also let down that same shield and that same wall when it comes to your marketing and branding and other things within the industry. And because of that, there's this stigma, which I consistently talk about on this podcast, about how producers feel like they need to be it all. They have to be the writer, they have to be the marketer, they have to be the mixing engineer, they have to be the mastering engineer, they have to do the advertising, they have to do the booking for shows, they have to do the promotion, they have to do every single thing. And though some of you may want to do that, not all of you, I'd say probably a less than 1% fraction of you will be able to do that. There's only a very handful of people that I can think of in the industry that have done that. If they've even done that at all, because most of the time it's their face that's the brand, but they don't realize the fucking team that is behind these people that are
right. It's okay to be blunt. I mean, the statistics of somebody being able to carry themselves from the ground to a top 1 level record, and then seeing that product become prosperous is really unheard of nowadays. Okay. And yes, people start off with that energy as these bedroom producers, and they're going to hone in, and they really have those goals to achieve. And you do achieve certain levels of success throughout, getting a label placement, meeting some great people. But if you think you're going to be able to achieve that goal by yourself, you are wrong. You're mistaken. Hit the brakes, turn around, go re-examine why you're doing this. Because if you think that you're going to do this on your own, whoever told you that, or whoever, wherever you heard that information, you're misinformed, and I don't want you to waste your time. And I know somebody's listening to this right now going, fuck, that's me. Because you know what? I was that person.
Every producer, every fucking producer that starts is that. I was that fucking producer.
Yeah.
The reason why I started this podcast is because I was that fucking person.
Yeah.
And I see time and time again so many producers be this person, the one that just thinks that they have to do it all, and that they think they can, and that they think they.
Dude, I tried singing on my own records one time, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing?
The other thing is that they think that they can fucking do that without systems in place that are going to get them to be successful. This book, The E-Myth Revisited, if you think that if you want to do that, if you want to be the one that does it all and gets yourself to the top, and you haven't read this book that I'm talking about, you're not going to get there without at least reading this book and realizing that, you have to structure things and put systems in place that are going to fucking get you there. But regardless, you get to a point where it's too fucking much. If you want to be a full-time producer and a full-time touring artist, you have to realize that you're putting out at least probably 1 track a month, if not more. And the amount of promotion that goes into that is unfucking believable when you have 5 tracks lined up over the next 3 months that you all have to consistently produce about or promote about. You have to make a couple of posts a week. You have to make sure you're talking to a video editor for some video you're doing for the track. On top of that, you have to splice up all the individual clips to promote on Instagram. put them on YouTube, put them on TikTok. On top of that, you have to be making sure that you're staying up to date with your tour bookings, making sure you're getting paid, making sure you're booking your flights. Like, when we start tacking on all the individual items that it takes to be a full-time producer and a touring artist, you can't fucking do it all.
There's this video.
Gotta build a team.
Yep. There's this video of Tiesto. I can't remember where I found it off the top of my head, but he's working on his new album or whatever, and it's in his label studio center or whatever, and he's there. And he's got like 6 bays at his studio, 6 different studio rooms. And he's just going up and down the hall, peeking his head in, seeing his team work on one thing. And these are his signed artists as well. And then he goes into the next one. And then he goes into the next one, gives his input. That is so smart. He's developed a campaign for his label to be consistent, have consistent releases with producers who are consistent. And guess what? He probably can turnkey an album in a month because he has that kind of workflow. Gino and I know top 100 DJs who have teams of like 11 to 20 people in their camps. Dude, 20 people to help one person succeed. I mean, everybody eats, right? But one person is succeeding. So, you know,
they're the face of the brand. Dude,
exactly.
One of the best people I like to point to for this is simply Armin van Buuren. He is a goddamn legend. He plays somewhere, I think, like 250 shows out of the entire year. He will jump city to city within the same day, country to country within the same day. And then he has a radio show he consistently puts out. 2 radio shows. He's got the one on Sirius XM where he does a State of Sundays, and then he's got a State of Trance every Thursday at the exact same time. He's never fucking late. It's a 2-hour show where he's engaged with the audience, and then he's leaving that and he's going and playing a show somewhere in Belgium like the next day, or somewhere in Russia. And then on top of that, the amount of music he's putting out as well. If you look at Armin van Buuren's releases, every day he'll have like 5 new releases, and a part of that is because he re-releases shit on other record labels. So he's like got this machine of releasing and putting out musical content that's just always running and never stops. And I can tell you right now, Armin van Buuren is not the one doing that. He's got a team behind him.
No.
The man's got to sleep and he's got to eat, you know?
I had an opportunity. I saw his master class, I don't know, a good 5-6 months ago. He released it through, the master class outlet that everybody's now kind of, doing. And he doesn't take any, shade and shame in saying, hey, I got this guy. And I think his name is Benno Degoji or Degoeji or something like that. And he's in the video with him. And he's like, so I got these tracks that he's absolutely producing, and not even producing, but collaborating with him in there and creatively producing with him a track that he obviously releases like I think 6 months from that masterclass with just his name on it, obviously, but the credentials are with the same guy in the studio, and he has no shame in saying, hey, I got this guy that literally stamps his approval of the songs that I make, and it can be whether it be a mastering engineer and a mixing engineer, whatever it be. But Armin van Buuren has it's a machine how he works, and it's just that's how it is. So I used to back then, and the producers, and I'm sure a lot of producers did too, used to take that and be like, God, that's not how you do it. Like, you're supposed to, write your music and do it yourself. Fuck that, man. Like, I'm so over that state. Like, fuck that. I'm just over it. So
that is the other fucking stigma, which I just did a whole podcast episode with my buddy Alex in Russia. He started edmghostproduction.com, edm-ghost-production.com. It was like the first ghost production website where you could go buy productions at. And this was like the main topic that we really talked about over the episode, is this stigma about quote unquote ghost production. Because what we're talking about right now is not ghost production, but so many young producers will go, oh, he has a ghost writer, he has a ghost producer. And it's like, no. When you think of ghost production, or what you're thinking of as ghost production, is someone entirely writing a song and you outright buy the rights to that song. You've never touched it. That is ghost production. What we're talking about here is co-writing, which, if you don't think that co-writing is being done at the highest levels of the industry, you wake the fuck up. Almost.
Ariana Grande, the biggest artist of the world. Some of these people don't write
Oh,
a single
dude,
song.
Zed's the middle.
You know, these
Yeah.
guys don't write songs, and a lot of people, and it's sad that a lot of these people who are hearing the radios and they're like, "Wow, Zed must have been so in his feels when he wrote this song." My God, Zed didn't write that song.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
like
looking at the
Matthew
credits right
Coma
now. It's
wrote
got
that.
1,
You know,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8
Yeah.
writers. for
8
the
writers
middle.
or 10 writers, and that's usually average.
Yes, that is an average. There are so many different, and honestly, if you guys don't know how this system works, not you guys, but listeners, if you don't know how the system works, record labels like Sony Entertainment, they will create lists of producers they find online, and they'll send out mass email. Well, first they'll introduce themselves to these producers and say, "Hey, we want to bring you on as a part of the writing team. We'll send you out a list of artists we need tracks for." And if you approve and you say, yeah, you'll get either a cut of the track or you'll just get an outright payment, a flat rate for just giving up your rights for the track. And what will happen, and this is only if you're fucking good enough, and most of the time you have to be networked and connected with these people, but they'll create these lists, basically an email list, and every month or so, they'll create a list of huge artists that you wouldn't fucking believe that you would be a part of a list on. They'll create these lists and they'll send an email out and say, we need tracks for these artists. And you can email them back and say, I'd like to work with so and so. And then they'll get back to you and say, yeah, okay, we'll put you on the writing team. And you literally will write just a fucking melody and send it off to them. And then a team will start constructing the songs to put together.
We've been fortunate to have our publisher get us involved with that. So every month we get a mailer, and I'm going to pull something up here. And it's got everybody from Kane Brown, crossover country artist who has a record with Marshmello, by the way, to Ariana Grande, to Zach Brown Band, to all these other things. And you're absolutely right. All you're going to do is kick back an idea or a concept. And by the end of it, you might have 11 producers on there with you, but now you got a number one record. So it's crazy that you brought that up, because nobody realizes that those mailers are targeted for people like us.
Yes.
Right? Because
they give you an opportunity.
Absolutely.
They give you a huge opportunity that I guarantee you would never have anywhere. Sorry, I don't mean
for
to
the
interrupt.
smart consumer, though, because a lot of people, if you guys remember, this used to be frowned upon because it's just like, this isn't yours, this isn't authentic. Those ghost websites that you were talking about, I remember back in the day, there used to be Reddit forums that we were trying to, like, we need to have a petition to get this website down. This isn't authentic. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We're trying to get this website down. Like, this is a career for some people. Like, they don't want to be the front line of the producer's world, and they just want to be in the studio pumping tracks for these guys, getting a cut. And at the end of the day, that's okay, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know.
No, you're right, dude. You're fucking preaching to the choir. Like, some people don't want to do that, but they want to write good music that people are going to hear. And a lot of these, again, with that ghost production episode, a lot of these fucking producers are making $500 to $1,000 a track, and they're selling 3 tracks a month. That's a good living. Like, just producing. Man. That's all you're fucking doing, dude. So
the last brief we got was for, believe it or not, a K-pop girl group. Okay. So we sent our catalog up through Dropbox, and we submitted 7 records. They put a hold on 5 of them. Okay. So I also want to just put it out there that it doesn't mean you're going to get picked up.
No,
that's a good step, right?
Yes. You're getting in with the right crowd. You're getting networked.
Right, they pay you for a hold, and you're like, holy shit, I just went from doing this bass house record to now I'm submitting K-pop. And by the way, that comes with humility, and you have to humble yourself. You've got to be flexible in your production. Don't, try to diversify your catalog whenever you can. Whenever you're bored, produce a genre that you're not used to. And then the next time, produce something else. And then the next time, produce something else. So we've developed a catalog of, Gino, what would you say, like 125 records?
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely.
That we literally put on hold for briefs. And some records are 4 years old, and they're like, hey, we want that piano. Hey, we want that drum riff.
It's something as simple as that. And then you'll get a fucking payout for something like that. Yeah, like, it's
absolutely.
This is what we're talking. And I mean, we're going to start moving into the supplemental income stuff, because this is the stuff we're talking about here, is supplementing your income as producers. And I mean, the reason why I wanted to talk about the team stuff is you have to build a team at some point. And I'm sure a lot of producers are sitting here going, well, how the fuck do I build a team? Well, one, you can find people who are up and coming who want to be involved in the music industry but don't have any that. Let's say you are trying to build a team and you need someone to do your marketing, and you find someone who wants to do marketing within music business but doesn't have any experience. Well, if you also don't have experience in marketing, your brand's shit, and you need to get that figured out, it might not be a bad idea to bring that person on if you don't have any money to hire someone, just so you both, like, you're giving each other a chance to learn and grow. And that's very important. And you never know if that person who wants to be a business marketer is eventually going to be the head of PR for Anjuna Beats. Like, you never know if they're ever going to get to that point. So if you throw them a bone early on in their career and they actually learn something and grow from you, you could potentially be like, they'll remember that. This goes right into the
Let me chime in on that real quick.
Yeah.
Yo, so like one of the first things for a legal contract that I got drafted up, real quick, to everybody listening, all you got to do is search Full Sail University audio engineer, Full Sail University um, uh, music law, right? And on Facebook you'll see students who have that in their profile description.
And they're
And you
working
want to
at
throw someone a
Starbucks.
bone? Yeah, you want to throw someone a bone? Why not a kid or someone who's literally getting paying for the education to do that, and have them work on an intern type level with you and say, "Hey bro, I might not have the budget right now, but if this wins and if I get a payday, I'll cut you something. Could you help me write this legal document? Could you point me in the right direction? Will your professor take a look at this on your behalf?" If you're not that creative, you've got to go diving into these hashtags. And let me tell you, music law, graphic design, music production, engineering, all of that you can find just through Berkeley Music and Full Sail University. I guarantee you can find a first semester dude who wants to grow his entire brand for 4 years of college with you.
That is,
and you will be his case study.
Fucking genius. That is so goddamn smart, and I've never thought about that. And I'm probably gonna utilize that for myself and my own fucking business, because that is
you become somebody's case study, and they literally get emotionally vested with your success.
And yes, and on top of that, you're opening up a potential network for them as well when they're done.
Absolutely.
Like, if you have a network, or you're starting to grow a network, and that network is going to continue to grow, and you bring on board someone like that, if they are even relatively smart, they'll see that and realize, like, the opportunity that they're being given. And sure, you might not be someone big now, but you never know where you're going to be at in 5 years. You never know where they're going to be at in 5 years. And if they have common decency, they'll realize that, and they'll be happy to help you out with something, or you work out a deal with you in some way. And some of this, what we're talking about, goes into the Go. Have you guys read The Go-Giver?
No.
Highly fucking recommend that book. That's a book that I spout about on this podcast all the time. It's just about taking on the business model of helping without expecting anything in return. You're just doing. You're going for it, and you're doing. When someone asks for your help, if you have the time and you have the opportunity to help someone out, just do it, because you create this karma-like effect where you can. This is something that I do with all of my clients. Whenever I onboard new clients, the first email I send out when I get a quote request is I say, "Hey, I'd like to schedule a phone call with you, do a needs discovery process." And it's totally free, and all that means is I'm going to ask you a list of questions, get to know you a little bit more, find out what your goals are, and then find out who in my network I can connect you with, where I can start driving that goal and pushing it forward. And that is not, and I tell this to all my clients as well, where I'm like, I don't care if you get a mixing and mastering project for me done or not. I don't care if you get one done and never one another. If you need help with anything, email me and I'll let you know what I can do for you. And that is just because I want to help fucking producers. That's why I have this show. I want to help people out. And if you can do that for someone else, and they're willing to do that as well, you create this bond and this relationship that can just take over. You can take over the world with.
One of the breakout visuals that we had was from Miami Music Week, a set that we did. And the kids that did the filming, shout out Simon, they were filming the UCF football team. Okay, so they were cameramen on a field. but they were always moving because those are action shots and they understand what it's like to go from left to right at a fast pace, blah, blah, blah. They just did Rolling Loud last year.
No shit.
They went from doing football footage for the University of Central Florida to now being picked up and getting their visuals from Rolling Loud. And we were the in-between. We were one of the in-betweens. And that's why I'm saying you've got to reach out to the next great visual artist, the next graphic designer. They don't have to be the best, but damn, they've got a fire under their ass. They're willing to work. They went to Miami. They filmed us. They made a killer video. Not even a year later, they got Travis Scott in front of them. You know what I'm saying? And if our connection at that time didn't take a chance on them, we would have never seen that growth in them. And now, when we're at a beck and call with them, we can hit them up. Hey, we need you. We're doing this festival, and we know that product's going to come out great. And same to our guy Zach. He's an educated person when it comes to the visual stuff. Like, you want to deal with people who are taking a chance on themselves to take a chance on you, and then let the world karma, like you said, start to spin.
Well, if I can chime in a little bit to jump on Carlos, what he was saying about Zach and all these other people that we're connected with now. Zach is a very close friend of mine, and he's the same guy who taught me sound design and everything I know about music production in Ableton. So he's now doing videos, and now like this guy's like a Swiss Army knife, and shout out to Zach. But what you were saying earlier in the podcast about like building a team and knowing like these people around you, this was somebody who I never thought in a million years would be editing our videos at a festival or a show. And sure enough, it's the same guy that taught me production, and it's like doing video. And just because like, hey Zach, what do you got going on? Oh, I want to do this, this, and this. Give him an opportunity, give him a chance. And like, sure enough, our team and our circle is so small when it comes to these things, but everybody has roles and everybody knows what they're doing. Sure enough, like we'll chime in with the production stuff, but it's just like, it takes more than just one, and you never know who it could be. And it's that's what the crazy part about all this is. So I just wanted to...
we've had a vocal session with a guy, part of Gino's initial team with Zach, and this, I won't mention him just because I don't know if he wants to put out there, but we're in this vocal session, and then we do this demo listening session. Come to find out, he's produced and released dubstep on an amazing level, but he's won Grammys with
Dan and Shay
on a country record.
No shit.
Okay, so everybody has to be willing to hone in on a specific craft, but don't be ignorant.
Don't constrict yourself.
Don't constrict yourself, because that guy was a heavy dubstep influence,
like the
but his Grammys
dubstep.
are from the countryside.
The
of
dirtiest
music.
headbanging, just
You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And
It's too...
kudos to him. He knows who he is. He's probably going to listen, absolutely, and he'll hear this. And let me tell you, it was in a vocal session that we discovered all of this. You know what I mean?
The power of your network, no one realizes the power of your network, and the network itself is like its own team that is working passively in the background without you ever knowing it. My network was okay before I started the podcast. My network now is growing more and
Wide
more.
with many.
Dude, it is spider webbed out faster than I could ever imagine. Big shout out to Chris, who connected us, because he's been a really big player and really growing that even more. And the thing is Chris and I are in a really good relationship where it's like we're just helping each other out. I helped out one of his buddies to get connected with one of my friends who's transition. He's rebranding and going into the dubstep scene, and he's starting to. And do you know who Noah Neiman is? Have you heard of him?
Yep.
So he used to be a huge trance guy. He released a bunch on Enhanced. Well, he's like my best friend. He's moving over
Dr. Noah.
Yes, Dr.
Right?
Neiman. Dr. Neiman. He's transitioning into the dubstep world right now. And one of Chris's buddies is a great dubstep producer, but it hasn't had any like real major releases. And so I was listening to stuff. I was like, oh, this is fucking great. I know Noah's looking to get connected with more people in the dubstep scene. So Chris and I helped I threw my buddy Noah a bone by hooking him up with this great producer, and Chris threw his buddy a bone and I threw both Chris and Noah a bone. So it was like this roundabout thing of all of us helping out with each other. And then Chris will come to me about you guys coming onto the podcast. He's like, hey, are you interested in like getting these guys on the show? And he keeps coming to me and he's like, hey, got these other artists I think are going to be good for the show. And I'm just like, he's like my fucking network machine to get me in with people to bring on as really good people for guests. And I mean, you guys are so it's like, and the trust grows even more with Chris as he like connects me with these people that are actually the ones I want on the show. He knows are going to be beneficial. And then on top of it, now I have you guys in my network and you have me and you have my network. So it's like we can come together and we can ask favors for each other or just see if there's anything.
Your listeners really want to see how this conversation transcends into something successful, give us 90 days and you'll see what we're going to do with you guys. You know what I mean? Like together from this point on, we know because of Chris, who we both know and has their best interest in both of us, we know that we can work together.
Yes.
And we know that I can bring you maybe a record that I need mixed and mastered because I just don't have the time, or Gino can reach out to you on a branding situation, and your listeners will see how that has the cause and effect, a positive cause and effect. Just by this conversation.
Yeah, no, exactly. You're like the listeners right
These
now.
These are the conversations that
this is what networking looks like right now. Exactly. Is us connecting. I can give these guys an audience and also help out my listeners by sharing your guys' story and your guys' information, which is great. And you guys are very knowledgeable. Everyone's learning from some really good people here. And the thing is I don't know who's in your network that could possibly help me out, and you guys don't know who's in my network who could possibly help you out. You just don't fucking know until you ask as well. Because, I mean, this will be something that grows over time, and the trust continues to go. But the other thing, too, is to understand not abuse the relationship. Because
I'm so happy you brought that up.
You can quickly get into a path where you're like, oh, shit, like, I know this person who has all these connections who could get me this, and that, but then a lot of people don't sit back and go, well, what am I doing for them? Like, how am I adding value to the relationship? And
this goes back to humility, because I can't talk to some of Gino's network because Gino has a specific relationship with them outside of our duo and vice versa. And we respect each other's territory, that we don't overreach. We may have a opinion that maybe we consider to mention for one another, but he has people that I don't overreach to because I respect his territory there. And I have people that he doesn't reach to because he respects my territory. And let me tell you something, people can ruin their entire career by trying to overstep one move. One move will blacklist you or blackball you, and you'll never be able to, and that web only keeps going to infinity. You know what I mean? So
it's the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon situation where like straight up right now, like I'm sure a year ago I was probably 6 degrees between someone and some big head of A&R. And as your network grows, you get a little bit closer and closer to that person. And you never know when you're eventually going to hit that. But it all comes down to networking. And I mean, the abuse thing is so fucking important. And honestly, the best advice I can give to younger producers or producers who are starting to come up and they're starting to grow your network, if you're worried about the abusing a relationship because of their network, look at the relationship and ask the person who has the network you want to get tapped into. Ask them how you can provide value to them, and only do that. Until you can provide a handful of things that have given this person additional value and you've done the go-giver situation where you've helped them out however you can, then and only then is it appropriate to ask for something minor. I mean, like, let's not be like, okay, I've helped them out with 3 things. And the other thing too is like, don't necessarily count. You don't want to sit here and go, okay, let me mark that one. I got 1, I got 2, I got 3. Now it's my turn. That's not how it goes. It's just you gotta let it be natural. And
check your emotions at the door. Ask yourself, am I envious? Am I jealous? Am I worried that this person's going to take off without me? If you can check all those emotions at the door, when the time is appropriate, the person who is in a position to help you can sense that you've been patient enough and will respect that. And again, if you're overdriving and over pushing, the helping hand gets further away, man. I mean, it's there, but it gets further away.
Yeah, I'll tell a story here that I think I've told on the podcast about. So if anyone's heard it before, bear with me. But when I first met Noah, so I moved to Austin, Texas in 2016. And before I moved to Austin, Texas, I had the year before I was getting really fucking into tritonal, hardcore, like obsessed with tritonal. Just I listened to their Piercing the Quiet album every single fucking day for a month straight. Still to this day, one of my top 5 favorite albums. So fucking good. And so I saw tritonal when I first moved here. Within the first 3 months or so, I saw tritonal was playing at Stubbs. So I went there and saw them, and Noah opened up for them. This is the first time I had ever heard of Noah. This is when he was going by Noah Neiman. First time I had ever heard of him. First time I had ever seen him. And I was like, oh, this dude's fucking sick. Let me look him up to like his Facebook page. Well, when I looked him up on Facebook, his personal profile showed up. And I was like, oh, he lives here in Austin. And I was like, let me just add him. And I sent him a friend request. And within like an hour, he accepted it when he was off stage. And then I was like, oh, shit, let me send him a message. So I sent in, dude, Noah is like the most humble fucking dude ever. I sent him, this is when he was touring with Tritonal. He had like 150,000 Spotify listeners at this point. So like he's a known artist. So I was like, this is crazy. Let me just message him and see if he can help me out with giving me advice. And he was like, message me the next day. Yeah, totally, dude. I help, I give feedback and you can send me feedback and whatnot. And so I saw this as an opportunity where I was like, okay, this is my chance to prove myself to someone. So I was like, I can only ask for feedback, but not every week. Like it's got to be like a monthly thing or every couple of months because I don't want to bug him. And then I also saw it as, okay, let me start like really paying attention to his Facebook feed. Let me like the things he's talking about. Let me engage in his content. Now let me find things that we're both interested in. And this was like a calculated relationship. And I found the things that we were interested in, and then I started messaging him personally about those things, and we really bonded on video games and like playing World of Warcraft and shit, and Destiny too. So we started talking about playing video games, and then eventually it like straight up it took 2 years or a year and a half. We're like, okay, let's start playing some fucking games together. And so we started playing video games together and talking a little bit more and getting more personal and more engaged. He started tagging me in posts. And so I was like, okay, this relationship is actually turning into a friendship. And it started to turn away from being a calculated relationship to a natural one. To now, it got to a point where I was like, I need to go to the gym. Noah goes to Gold's gym all the time. We had actually just played like D&D together. I played D&D, so we played together. Yeah. And then I was like, well, I'm going to take this a step further. I got a gym membership. He's like, I'm always looking for a gym partner. Hell yeah, let's do it. The next day, this is the first time we had ever actually hung out in person. We were working out together. We worked out with each other every single day, except for Sundays, for like a year and a half straight. We became best friends. It took 2 years for me to get the first
what an amazing story.
And we're now best fucking friends. He sends me unreleased tracks to get feedback on. Like I was the kid coming to him, be like, can I get feedback? And now he comes to me being like, hey, how's this sub sound? Where I'm like, now it doesn't matter because it's like we're really good fucking friends now. We hang out, we talk, we have discussions, and it started as this calculated thing as an opportunity, and it naturally turned into a really good relationship. And because of that, he's helped me out so much. But not only that, because of this podcast and my network as well, I've been able to connect him with really important people that have really helped him out as well, and he sees that. And neither of us really abuse that either, because there is this respect for each other that we've gotten to.
That's awesome. And he just had kids, babies,
Yep,
right?
he just had twins.
Yeah.
Mhm,
So
yeah.
congratulations to him.
Yeah, I'm super.
awesome.
It's super. I was the first person he told, dude.
What?
Like, yeah, like straight
That's
up,
so
like
awesome.
I was the first person he told at the gym, and it was like that's how close we've gotten. So it's really fucking cool to see that relationship just evolve and morph into something
Dude, that's the
bigger
beauty
than
of
you
this
could.
whole thing.
Yeah.
Man. That's so awesome.
You never.
You've got a friend for life now.
Oh, definitely, dude. Like
You know?
you never realize where these relationships can go unless you put the time and effort into them and really invest into them, and invest into them honestly too. Don't put up this fake facade, because people see right through that, and it doesn't work out in the end. It never works out. I would love to get into the supplemental stuff, but I got to
Let's do a part 2.
Yeah,
Let's do a part 2.
definitely do a part 2. We can get into the supplemental income stuff, which I know we said we were going to talk about, but let's do a part 2, and we can go into the supplementals. And then there was something. What else were we gonna? I feel like there was some. Fuck, I don't know if I wrote it down.
We're gonna have to fly out to Austin and do some bench press competitions with you guys.
Dude, yes. Oh my god, dude! I haven't been to the gym since this whole fucking COVID.
Same.
I'm starting tomorrow. I was gonna start today, but we're recording right now, so I was like, dude, it's so bad.
Yeah.
I'm getting. I need to go.
Just be
back.
careful now. That's it. Go in there.
I know.
Yeah.
Pulling something.
Yeah, for real. I gotta take it nice and slow and take my time. But is there anything else you guys want to say? Any last words or? Oh, plug your guys' social media. Plug if you have any shows coming up. If you're doing any online events or anything like that. Plug away.
So we are.
Well,
go ahead.
Carlos.
Go ahead, Gino. I'm sorry.
No, man. I was just gonna say, thank you for putting us on the podcast. We really enjoy, reaching out to the audience out there about things that you might have not known about, or you learn a thing or two. These are things that Carlos and I we absolutely love, just giving information and talking it out. So just wanted to say thank you about that. And as far as the socials, if you're gonna reach us out through SoundCloud, we're always on Spotify as well. All Los Padres, and Instagram Los Padres _ and that's it. Let me give the mic to Carlos.
Yeah, man. Thank you very, very much for having us. I mean, I feel like we developed the initial steps for a friendship as well. I think this podcast was amazing. Not a lot of people are talking about what you talk about, so I really hope that your listeners understand the importance of why you touch on these subjects. I think it's something that will help aid future producers or whatever the category avoid some hiccups along the way and some turmoil. As far as us, we've got a couple cool announcements coming out next quarter. We are going to be working hand in hand with No Face with a distribution deal. We're going to have a label launching, working with artists from all over the country at the moment, to include some in the Caribbean. We've got, it's just going to be a lot of fun, and we hope that everybody will support that, So the new sound, the new wave, post-COVID for Los Padres is on the way. So appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, no, I thank you guys. I'm happy to have you guys on. We'll definitely get together for a part 2. This is awesome. I appreciate your guys' time and everything you guys have to say. And I mean, to anyone else listening out there, exactly what Carlos said, like a lot of there's a reason why I talk about the things I talk about in this podcast, and it's because it's relevant to you guys and there's something to learn there. And there's a lot of information in the podcast that you can get frustrated because there's so much. The biggest thing I can say to those people who might be frustrated or confused where to start is to pick something and just work on that one thing for a little while, and then just take it one step at a time. And the podcast is an advice buffet. If you don't like something, don't listen to it, don't care for it, close it, doesn't matter. As long as you get one piece of good information out of this podcast, I'm happy. But yeah, thank you guys so much. So excited for what you guys are doing. You guys have some good stuff in the works, and it's awesome. I can't. This is the first time I'm hearing of your guys' record label, so I'm pumped to see what happens with that. That's gonna be awesome. Well, that's
awesome.
About it, guys. Thank you so
talk
much.
soon.
Yeah, take care.
Take care.
Thank
Stay
you,
safe.
Envious Audio. Thank you, man.
Thanks for checking out this episode. As always, guys, head to enviousaudio.com/episode 29 to check out the show notes, join the Facebook community, at Electronic Dance Money Community and leave me a review on Apple Podcast. This is going to be the last 2 weeks that you have to get your reviews in so you can enter yourself into the mixing and mastering lesson that I am providing to one lucky reviewer. Go and leave a useful review to other producers, and we'll see you guys for part 2 in a couple weeks. Take care.